to episode 11 of the Happier Active podcast. My name's Ellie and I'm the host. I'm super excited for you to listen to this episode. This really embodies what I'm trying to do here. Lesley is someone who's kind of created her own niche bringing all sorts of different practices that she's developed skills in over the years to create one method of working that's pretty, unusual, but covers all the things that we love. So, somatics and bringing in your spirituality, while also using some of those more traditional mental health practices and other work. And, if you listen to all of my episodes, you'll know I absolutely love that kind of thing. So this was right up my street. At the very beginning, she mentions emotional archaeology, which is a term she was using, but someone else uses it as well. So it's not actually a term she's using anymore. All the links to her socials will be at the bottom because I had to cut that bit at the end because she's changed her handle since we recorded. But luckily, all the links are there, so you can still find her, and it's well worth doing that because her work is amazing and really interesting and will give you loads of stuff to think about. I think that's it. Love getting feedback from you all, and any suggestions for topics you would like covered. I always love that, or any specific practitioners that you think would be good to come on. I would also love to hear. All right, enjoy the episode. So, there are many ways to find your path to better health and happiness, and what works is highly individualized. My philosophy is that most people are more likely to find that if they're active participants in their own journey. So this is a space to start exploring some of the rich and varied ways which people practice in, so you can start thinking about what resonates with you and discover new or different practices to either deepen or begin your own health journey. And today I have Lesley Turner. So why don't you tell us a bit about what you do?
Yeah, emotional archaeology. People probably have never heard of that. That's because that's a title I gave myself, so it's totally
Amazing.
Fine that you haven't heard. It combines a bunch of things I've done in the past. So my first degree was in forensic biology with a minor in anthropology and archaeology. So it's combining that with, then I went into naturopathic medicine and somatic care, and emotional wellness and mental health was kind of kind of in the forefront of what I treated, specifically burnout and stress-related conditions. And I just noticed that if you're not digging into the emotional root causes and the energetic root causes of these physical ailments, you're missing a big part of the picture. And that wasn't really taught to us in school, or really anywhere, unless you're taking a very specialized niche kind of course. But so then I took it upon myself to learn more, take the courses, and dive into it deeper. Now I get to just be the person I want to be with regards to diving deeper into people's emotions, people's energy, the background, like the childhood, the things that make them tick. And it's beautiful, and the transformations have been astounding.
Yeah, I love that. It's so interesting because I think, it's so often you see in these spaces where people have got stuck, and it is often because there's something they can't get past, or that's sometimes you don't even know and something will set it off, but there's something that's been living in your head that you can't get past until you've dealt with it.
That's right. And we all have them. We have these patterns or this conditioning that is old. It's either from our childhood or it's from, DNA lineages that have been passed to us, that if we're just running on an unconscious level, we're perpetuating that program and that pattern over and over and over again in every interaction we have, whether it's fear-based, whether it's thinking that you're not worthy. It impacts all of our decisions and all of the leaps of faith we do or don't take, or the partners we attract in, or the jobs we attract in. You can't escape this. But the beautiful thing is that when we do see this pattern come up, so say it's unworthiness, and we get triggered, and something triggers the pattern. It's a beautiful way of going, oh, I didn't realize this was still in me. Let's work on it. Let's see it for what it is. Let's love it till the point that it gets transmuted. And it's such deep, nourishing work for both your nervous system and your relationships and the energy and life you want to bring to the world. I love it.
It's amazing. I love this sort of stuff. So when I started doing trauma therapy, I did EMDR. And it was interesting because as part of that, you do a lot of the box breathing to help get you out of panic states. And after I got good at doing that, it was interesting because I guess there was loads of stuff like you're talking about that I didn't even notice I was doing. And I would suddenly notice that I'd started doing the box breathing. So my body was responding like, oh, we're stressed. Now we don't. And that was when I was then able to identify some of those patterns that I wasn't aware of, but my body obviously was, once I'd figured out how to calm myself down.
Yeah, and it's all sitting kind of in your body and your nervous system. So I love that you did that, because what you're doing is basically taking kind of a chunk of time, a pause, if you will, between the trigger and your response to it. And it just helps you see things a little more clearly, as opposed to reacting in the same way that your patterns want to react every single time. That just reinforces those patterns. So a lot of my clients, they'll come in and I've created something called the SEER method. So it combines somatic therapy, energetic medicine, and emotional release. And they'll come in, we'll do some hands-on work, we'll get to some deeper root causes, and then they're like, but how do I maintain this? How do I not slide back? And there's, a bit of coaching to this as well. They have access to me. We have a lot of resources we can give them. But what they don't realize is that a lot of this work is like quantum, in the sense that you release it in the form of tears or movement or yawns or whatever the release looks like for you. Usually it's tears. That portion of it is gone. And it's such a thrill and an honor to have someone sitting in front of you, tears pouring down their face, big aha moments coming, and they're like, but what if it comes back? And it's like, okay, we got this though. We have the tools, we've got the box breathing, we've got the awareness, we've got the statements of allowing, and it's everything. It fills me up just watching this happen, this transformation happen in front of me, and reminding people, and maybe some of your listeners even, that they don't have to do this alone. There is a way to get through some of the deeper, denser emotional patterns that are in the body that we think are just us. And it's not. Yeah. Actually, something that I say to people, because I am a coach, and I find that often I have people who probably need to go to therapy or see someone and they really don't want to because they have a lot of fear around it. And something I always try to say to people is it's actually very hard to do this stuff on your own, because a lot of the time even saying it out loud takes away a lot of its power. Yeah. And that's the first, it's really scary, and you've got to find someone you're comfortable with, but actually the saying it is almost half the work. But it's the really hard bit at the beginning. Bringing it from the depths of you, out of your mouth, through your throat chakra and into the world transforms it immediately. The fact that you're just bringing awareness to it is going to transform it. But having someone who's a neutral, compassionate, non-judgmental ear is huge. I have my own person that does this for me. I mean, not maybe exactly the same, but yeah, we all need them.
Yeah. And I think it's it's something I've started talking about a lot more, but I think it's a problem. There's so much shame around all these things, and people internalize all of that, and that makes it hard to get started, I think.
Well, and realize, and they just think it's them. That's just who I am. That's my personality. That I've been like that my whole life. That doesn't mean it's you. It means it's been a pattern that's been with you for a very long time, but it's not really you. And shame, I think shame's kind of that root of why we hold on to that conditioning that you don't need anymore. It's holding you back or sabotaging things for you, but it takes a lot of courage to sit down with someone and bare your heart in a sense. But it is one of the not fastest, but most efficient ways to heal some of the deeper things is to get it out. So I agree with you. 100%.
Yeah. And something I think as well, like a lot of people, it's hard to deal with other issues in your life if the big root causes are really have got to the point where they're blocking everything else, because they can make it hard even to do things like put yourself forward for a promotion at work, or
for sure,
show up in your relationships the way you want, or as a parent, or all these other things, because it's because they can kind of grow into these huge blockers that start kind of taking over.
Which is great, because eventually you'll not be able to ignore them anymore.
Yeah.
But can be really, really uncomfortable, if not painful, if you're going through it in the moment and not realizing what this is. I know, so I'm a mom. I have a 5-year-old, and my biggest learning curve has been as a mother. As an entrepreneur, you do have learning curves, don't get me wrong, but the mom has been the most triggering, and bringing all your stuff up to the surface to finally get looked at. And it's, these are wonderful. Like, all your triggers are such gold mines of information that's still there. But in the moment, it can be very hard to navigate and to want to respond in the way that, your highest self wants to respond, as opposed to these old patterns taking the wheel. But yeah, so if you're a parent listening, this, even for people who are in the work every single day, we still get triggered. We still have our own stuff come up. We wouldn't be where we are if we didn't already go through some of the deeper, denser work. So it's okay not to be perfect at this.
Yeah. So I've got a toddler, actually, and it is amazing how there's loads of stuff that I thought I dealt with, and then they do something and you're like, I've not dealt with this as well as I thought.
That's right.
We better go back and look at that again.
Then you get to see it again through a different lens, a lens of compassion and love, and just a different level of awareness. And it'll shift again, and then it'll come back again. Just because it's coming back doesn't mean you're failing. It doesn't mean you haven't done a lot of the work already. And that's
to add to that, what I was going to say is that a lot of, like, almost kids' job, especially really young, and then again when they're teenagers, is to like find where the edges are and push on them. So they're going to do it anyway.
Constantly. Yeah.
Even if you're a sort of Buddhist monk, they're probably still going to find a way, because it's their job.
It is. And they are our fastest way of doing the inner work. If we're willing to. It's a really easy way to get stuck too. But if we're willing to grow through the tough moments, they will fast track you, those kids. They will. Yeah.
And so what do you kind of say to people who are kind of know they want to start but are really frightened to get going? What would be your advice?
Good question. Yeah. I do have a question on my intake form. This is, how willing are you to go deep? How willing are you to be open? And I think I have a range, so 0 to 5 being super open. And honestly, if they say anything less than a 4, I'm like, maybe you're not ready just yet. However, if someone's like, I know I need this, I just don't know how to start, then, there's a few ways to like work with me specifically, in really gentle ways. But I would say just, there's free resources on YouTube even that you can start listening to. One of my favorites that dives deep is Kyle Cease, and he does amazing work. I've been in a program of his for a couple of years now, and the transformations I see just by listening to some of his free content on YouTube are phenomenal. So start there if you're just curious on it and this is all kind of brand new to you. If you want to work one-on-one with someone, then there's tons of coaches out there, but you do have to resonate. Like, not every coach is going to match you. And the other part to what I do is intuitive work. So I have the ability to talk to kind of higher self, source, and call in their team, whoever is on their team, whether it's someone who has crossed over, someone who, or just, their spirit team is essentially, and I will channel in some information from them before the client even comes in to see what is coming up this week or today that's a pattern that we can dive into that's not going to necessarily rock the nervous system, like something they're not ready for. So I'm always being guided by that kind of stuff too, which is a little more woo than the average average therapist, but
woo.
yeah.
I also think like
It's
all
been
those,
fun.
I actually was reading recently about a study about, spirituality and healing and recovery, and how I guess it's the same in AA and spaces like that people who have more success often have some kind of spiritual practice because it helps ground them in it. And for people who don't have the spirituality, if they have a really strong why, which I guess is the equivalent, it's really helpful for giving focus to work.
Yeah. When you hit those low moments and you start to forget why you're doing all this work and why, then the why becomes important, and knowing that there's something greater than you supporting you along the path. I think that's, whether you wanted it, it could be anything. It could be universe, God, source. I don't care. As long as you feel like you are being held and supported. Yeah, I think it's important. It's become very important in my own life. So, and I get it's not for everyone to sit down and talk to someone like myself, a therapist, where they want to go into like, give me I used to be a naturopath, so give me a supplement to help with my adrenals. Oh, that's not where I go anymore. And I can still talk that, like if there's some evidence-based scientific kind of things that are coming up. Sure, I used to be a science nerd. I absolutely could talk that. But I've seen more transformation and even some ease and freedom into how people are healing when they combine the deeper, the emotional, the energetic, the woo, the intuition, and really start trusting that even for themselves.
Yeah. I think it is really interesting, and I think especially with like stress and burnout, people have often lost that connection with whatever it is. And even like something that I try and say to people, just go out, if you're going to exercise and you only have time to do one thing, go outside and walk. If you're not going to do anything else, because like just the being in nature is probably going to be more beneficial than half an hour in the gym if it's one or the other.
Nature cure is astounding. Yes.
Yeah.
I used to do hike and learns with people and teach them just the power of just being in nature. And not only do you get like the antimicrobial essence from the trees, to help with your immune system, but the fresh air has an impact, the sunshine has an impact, the sounds of the birds, the auditory input has such an impact, and just being connected to something bigger than you.
Yeah, and you're much more likely to refine some of that spiritual connection outside than sitting at your computer or in your office or...
Absolutely. My church is nature, so you're speaking to the right person. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's probably mine as well. I just love being outside. It's kind of my...
Yeah. I have this club. It's called the 1111 Club, and I go out once a week in nature and film content, teachings or intuitive downloads or somatic exercises or whatever. And there was a couple times where the weather was crap because I'm in Canada and sometimes it gets crappy, and it was too bad. So I stayed in my house and recorded, and the information that flowed through was not as powerful as being outside, connected to nature, grounded. I'm often sitting in the snow, or I've got the snow gear on and it's snowing in the background or whatever, and it's beautiful, and it's been it's an incredible experience to see the difference between indoors and outdoors.
Yeah, I find that I'm the most creative when I'm outside. So when it's my like non-negotiable is that I walk for at least half an hour outside a day, but normally an hour. And I always come back, like I need to immediately start writing everything down because I've had all my best ideas.
Yes.
While I'm outside walking.
I love that. Yeah, of course you will. Of course you will. Because you're not only moving your body and blood flow to the brain, but you are just immersed. Like there's nothing else you need to do in that moment. You don't have to be on with anybody else. And it's glorious. Yeah, I love it. I agree with you completely.
So I haven't actually spoken to anyone yet about the somatic stuff, which I'm really interested in because I sort of hear about it a lot more, but I'd love you to talk about that.
Somatics is beautiful. It's you can access soma is body. So it's looking at what is still kind of the stories that the body is holding. You can gain access to it simply by talking. Like I have a somatic therapist who does work just virtually with me, and I do it with others. And then I also have a component to my seer method, which is hands-on if someone's in the area and wants to come and just assessing what the body is holding. And you can tell based on tissue density what's there or what, and usually I get a kind of insight when I'm working on a body specifically that, ooh, there's something here about your mom, and can we talk about that for a second? And just releasing. A lot of men hold kind of that lower mood, depression and despondency in their hamstrings. So releasing those can help to boost the mood. So that's part of it. But the other part is just connecting to the body. So a lot of us are just up in our head, racing through the day, right? But when we slow down enough to listen to our breathing, connect to our body, we can actually hear what's here, what's trying to emerge, what's trying to come up. And the cool part is that usually the body's trying to talk to us all the time, but we ignore it and we medicate it and we don't really listen. And when we finally do listen, it's like you get to be friends with this beautiful part of you, and then you just allow what's here, allowing that whatever needs to come up, even if it's like a painful memory or a phrase or an emotion that feels really heavy, you're allowing it, you're not judging it, you're holding space for it. And you can watch in real time when you do this, how whatever pain or sensation transforms and shifts or moves. I have clients every day that come in and they're like, oh, my shoulder's killing me today. And I'm like, okay, let's see what's here. And we'll sit with it, we'll connect, we'll ground into our body, and they'll give me an emotion. Oh, there's fear. There's fear here. Okay, let's allow fear to be here. You're welcome to be here, fear. And it's beautiful to then watch, okay, fear was actually that top layer. Let's go underneath it a little bit. See what else is there. Oh, I'm remembering something. Someone said something to me recently that triggered a memory from this. And okay, allow it to come up. And that's when we do maybe some inner child work to help with any of that deeper, older healing. And then afterwards we check in. How's that shoulder feeling? Oh, it's gone. Weird. Okay. Because we often will take an Advil or a Tylenol, and then we miss the gold nuggets that are actually trying to come up. That's basically...
So I'll tell you my beginning of getting into all of this kind of space and probably even starting therapy was one morning, and I was really stressed, but I had no emotional literacy, so I had no sense of how to express my own emotions. So when I used to get stressed, I would just get more and more and more tense, and my shoulders would get higher and higher and higher. And I used to have this recurring shoulder injury, which I now know was a stress thing, and that had happened already. So we were way past that. This shoulder was like up here, and I woke up one morning and my jaw was pretty much locked. Anyway, so I couldn't chew, so I always thought something awful. I thought I had like tetanus or something awful had happened. I went to the doctor. And he was like, well, you don't need a doctor, you need a therapist, because this is just stress. And you're like tensing your jaw so much in your sleep that it's a muscular issue, but it's like, I can't fix this. And I honestly, it took me quite a long time to then acknowledge that was correct. But I just couldn't believe that I could injure myself that badly in my sleep and that it was all a mental health issue, essentially.
Right.
Because I couldn't fathom that connection between like stress and how I was internalizing stress and actual injuries. And it is amazing once you realize that, how quickly it all kind of fixes itself.
Right, because you finally get to the root cause of it, as opposed to doing all of the therapies and not really getting to, the stress and the emotions behind it. Yeah, I'm so glad that this is being talked about more, that the emotions play a bigger role than we've been taught to believe over the years, and that where you hold these deeper, denser stress emotions, fear emotions, old pain is very real. It shows up physically, and you cannot treat one without the other. It doesn't work. It'll keep coming back until you get to that root. I have a similar story. So I was a naturopath for 11 years. And within about 6 months of graduating from the school, which was extremely stressful, I got a shoulder issue. My left shoulder, I couldn't raise my arm kind of past maybe 60 degrees. And it was just really sore. So I had all the workup, I had a CT, I had a cortisone shot, I went to physio, I went to chiro, and nothing helped. And then they were looking into the neck, and they're like, well, you may have an impingement at the C3. Anyway, I did 11 years of this pain where it was constant, and it would flare up, and then I'd be in bed, and within 2 weeks of dropping my naturopathic license, it went away. It's never come back. And I didn't know that wasn't the path I was supposed to be on, but my body knew. My body knew it all. And I've seen the same things show up in people who are in relationships that aren't serving them, but they think, oh, well, it's fine. Is it though? Your body's telling me something different. Or jobs, or, houses, circumstances, whatever. It shows up in the body.
Yeah, and it's so, I think one of the complicating factors of that is obviously there are like societal pressures to stay in jobs or relationships particularly, and then there's
of
that
course.
What's it called, the sunken cost fallacy, where you think, well, it'd be better to fix it than start over, so you keep pouring in and you almost, if it's been going on for quite a long time, you're actually like trying to not listen to your body and trying to override that, and that
override it
harder and harder to get to what the problem is.
You're right. Well, and sometimes it can be a nutrient deficiency, and sometimes it can be something that does require a little bit of medication temporarily. So we don't have a medical system that can assess all of these things all at once, which is, I think, why there's so much space for people like us to come in and go, yo, are you happy? Is there something we could shift just slightly in order to increase joy in your life? Because that's all it takes. It's these tiny little steps to start seeing, oh, wait. And getting rid of the patterns that brought in these circumstances. Not getting rid of. Let me rephrase that. I'm being corrected. Seeing them, honoring them, loving them, transmuting them. Because it's not about dumping all the old stuff. It's about kind of embodying that made you, but recognizing they don't have to lead the way anymore.
Yes. Yeah, and I actually, just going back to what you said at the beginning of that about like supplements and things, that's kind of my thing a lot, is that I'll say to people, because a lot of times people come and the first thing they're like is like, what are some things I can just take that'll fix all of this? And I'm really like, we can start with that, because like you say, there might be, if you're so stressed that you need something to manage your cortisol, if you've got very depleted, great, well, let's start with that to help. But the aim of this like work of 3 months is to not need any of that. Like by the end of 3 months, like you should be getting it from your food. You should be able to, if it's non like medical stuff, if it is like gut health, if it's stress, like we can do some things to manage it, but the aim should be to not have to have supplements, and to be doing that through what you're doing with your body, what you're putting into your body.
That's right. And then go a little bit beyond, because if you're a people pleaser, you're going to have digestive issues. So let's work on the pattern that feels the need to please others, and then watch the digestive issues kind of go away. You know, let's set some really good boundaries with the people that require boundaries, and watch how some of your stress just kind of melts away. And yeah, I love you know, I take supplements too, but if I'm really doing the deeper work, I don't need them as often. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, this is like an overshare, but people who listen are used to me doing this. But after I had my baby, I kept getting UTIs, and so I take the D-mannose supplement.
Yeah.
And I now don't have to take it all the time, but there are certain points in my cycle, or like if I know I'm going to have some late nights, and I guess, you know, something changed in my flora and fauna, we'll call it.
Yeah.
And so I'm more sensitive to them now, but I don't need, there was a point where I had to have it all the time, because otherwise I would just, and now it's pretty, but I can tell, like, if I'm good, like if I'm going to have late nights or...
Right. The stress is, there's more stress on your body, and you're going to,
And so you just need that bit of extra support. And I guess probably even a year ago, I wouldn't have had enough self-knowledge to notice that pattern, and I would have been like, I don't know why this keeps happening, but whereas now, because I'm more in tune with what's happening in my body, I can almost preempt or notice much earlier and nip things in the bud before they turn into a need for antibiotics.
Yeah. Self-awareness is going to be key in all of the healing work. I mean, you don't have to be healing all the time, obviously, but you will catch it earlier, and you'll notice, ooh, okay, I know my stress is getting higher, my shoulders are elevating. Okay, let's do something about that. That box breathing you talked about is beautiful, and great. It's great awareness, and I think that's what all coaches in this kind of sphere want, is just to create more self-awareness for their clients, so that they don't need us all the time, which maybe is bad for business, but great for humanity. That's the aim. And to help them know that they're in power. You know, they don't have to give their power away to everybody else. They are the ones in power with their own lives, and we're just here to support them in whatever they need. And I love that. You've got awareness, you've got intuition, and you're making decisions that are for you, even if it doesn't make any sense to anybody else.
Yeah, and actually having the confidence to, the self-confidence to say no, or to just, and to really accept that you cannot change other people, and so all you can change is how you react to them, is so helpful. Like, knowing that that's a thing and that it's absolutely fine. Yeah. To just not try, and you can explain if you want, but basically you can't change other people, so you just have to change how you...
Right. I actually just did an 11/11 Club episode on this, because I was talking about Mel Robbins' book, the Let Them Theory.
Yes.
And it's not a new theory. Like, I love Mel, but this has been around for decades. And in my world, I just call it allowing. I allow. I allow so-and-so to be how they need to be. And what it is if we're trying to change people, we're trying to control. And control is futile, because we don't have control. You know, life, as much as we'd love to try and control every situation, we don't actually have control. It's an illusion. And to try and control means we're living in fear. We're in fear of how someone's going to respond or act, or what they're going to say. And when we can sit back and go, they can do what they want to do, and then it's my job to set a boundary, decide whether they're going to be in my life, speak up for myself, teach them how I want to be treated, etc., etc. So we can't give our power away to the behavior of other people, because then we are being controlled by the behaviors of other people, and that sounds terrible too. So yeah, I love the reframe of control. And you know, we all say, oh, I'm a control freak, I need to be in control, but that's because at some point you felt like you weren't, and now you're afraid of not being. Yeah. And the thing is, you're not. You know, we can go back to childhood on that one. We can go back to a lot of different patterns, but it's once you realize that, it takes the pressure off of trying to change people or manipulate people into doing it the way you want them to do it. Just let them. So I love that Mel's like, if people could just say, let them, the world would be a lot gentler, I believe.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So I mean, you can see it in family patterns a lot. I'm just trying to think about how to talk about this. But I grew up in quite a big family, and so everyone has like established roles, I guess.
Okay.
And then I guess some of those patterns, people fall into them. So when we're all together, everyone's different than when we're apart, because you kind of fall back into those childhood roles, and then weird little arguments start because everyone knows how to push each other's buttons, and everyone has the like, you're the this one, you're the this one. And there was a point where I just was over it, but I just stopped engaging in the kind of previously set patterns. And initially some people found that quite difficult and some people have adapted it better than others. But it is really interesting that when I was just like, okay, well, this is like a game with set rules, but I don't actually have to play the game. I can just start showing up as myself and not join in with this. And obviously initially that was quite hard, because they were like, well, this is where we do that and you're supposed to get mad. And then we find it funny.
You'll get resistance on that for sure. Because that's you saying, nope, this is how I deserve to be treated. This is how I'm going to respond to this game. And I remember a quote, this is not mine, so you've probably heard this. Right. The quote I was thinking of is, people will only remember you based on when they had the most control over you. So if you think about extended family, and say you have an aunt or uncle that is not doing any sort of inner work, or, seeing their own patterns, when you get together with them, they will treat you in the same manner like they treated you when you were 5 or 6, when they had the most power and control over you. And it's then up to you to set the tone to how you respond to that, just exactly like you did. And so I hope I didn't butcher that, but
no, that makes sense.
We have to, especially with family, we get to set the tone for how we deserve to be treated. And if someone's not in your life on a regular basis and they just kind of revert back to what they think you should be, that's a beautiful opportunity to stand in your own power and go, actually, no. However, that being said, I mean, I had an interaction with a family member not that long ago, and I completely reverted back to my 5-year-old, 6-year-old self without actually realizing what was happening, until I got really mad and was like, what is going on right now? And it took me stepping back and going, oh, that's what just happened. Ooh, okay. Now I'm aware of it. Going forward, I'm actually, a 42-year-old woman that deserves to be treated as such. And so you're not going to necessarily get it right the first time until you recognize the patterns and you're like, oh, okay, I see what's going on.
Yeah, and I actually think, going back to when we were talking about parenthood, that's another point where that sort of thing can happen as well, because everyone gets new roles, especially if you're the person bringing a first grandchild or something like that. Suddenly everyone's roles have to change, and that can be quite difficult for people to step into a new role. Especially, I guess it's in some ways easier for the parent giving birth. It's almost the easiest because they have a physical thing happen to them, and like for dads it can be quite hard, or the non-birth giving partner, and then grandparents or extended family, because they have to change their role and it's quite sudden for them.
It's sudden for everybody. I mean, you weren't a mom and then suddenly you are a mom, and your whole mindset and body and cellular space is just changed entirely. But yeah, I get that. It can take a little bit of time for our mindset and brain and consciousness even to catch up with the reality of what's going on in that moment.
I find all this stuff like so interesting, especially going back to the kind of getting started thing. I was talking to someone about journaling, and I guess other practices that people can do to kind of get them ready. And do you have any things that you recommend to people if they've said on your intake form that they're maybe only at like a 2 or 3, but they do want to do it in the future? that you kind of send people to?
So I like practices that can be done anywhere and for zero money. Yeah. So one of the things that I will often tell people is, if you're driving somewhere and you're the only one in the car, turn off the radio and just listen to silence and just see what comes through. Because often we're just not quiet enough. We're not paying attention enough. We're not present enough. We're not in the now. And yes, that's part of meditation, but even meditation sometimes has this like pressure associated with it. Like, oh, I got to sit down on a meditation cushion and it's got to be for 15, 20 minutes. If you were to just listen to silence and be completely present for 1 minute, 60 seconds, your life can change. Because suddenly your body is able to talk to you. Suddenly an intuitive, insightful idea can come through. And the problem is that we're go, 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 hustle, hustle, hustle kind of society, culture, conditioning. It's interrupting that. It's interrupting our connection to ourselves and our highest. And so, yeah, I say get really comfortable with some silence, not having to fill it on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I did in January, I do these like monthly challenges, and in January one of mine was meditation, because I struggle a lot with that. Yeah. And it was really interesting because I asked a lot of people on social media for like techniques for people who struggle with meditation, and then I tried lots of different ones, and I've basically found I cannot sit still and do it because I just immediately start fidgeting. And but I found walking really, it's basically meditation for me anyway. Yeah. But also doing ones where you like hold yourself and rock, and then I actually can be in silence. But it's that needing that, taking the pressure off to sit still. Yeah. Yep. And so just like rocking, and then I can stay really present in my body because I'm doing something with it, but it's quite rhythmic and routine.
Right. And okay, so there's two things that listening to silence, because we are such a distracted society, it's not going to be comfortable the first few times you do it. In fact, probably the first year that you're going to listen to silence is going to be triggering in some way. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, just means you got to get through the uncomfortable. Now, the longer you listen to silence, the more that monkey brain hustle thing is going to dissipate. For a lot of people, it takes almost 45 minutes to get through that chatter before you actually sink into that deeper level. Now, there's ways to, I don't want to say hack, but kind of hack it. Like, so doing some movement prior to sitting can be really helpful. Sticking your face into cold water right before can activate more of that parasympathetic state, so that you're not kind of trying to meditate while in fight or flight mode, because that's impossible. But it doesn't even have to be meditation. It's just listening to silence, letting yourself be a little more comfortable with not having music on, not constantly listening to a podcast, even though we're talking on a podcast right now. But allowing yourself just to be is probably the first step. Yeah. Now, do you have to be good at that before you come see me? No, absolutely not, because we'll work on it and we'll see what's kind of distracting you from that. But it's a really, really good way to get more in tune with you.
Yeah, actually something, I think I've been doing that like almost unintentionally, but now when I do my walk in the evening, I have those headphones that are like bone conducting, so you can still hear the kind of world, and I will put on a meditation for the first 10 minutes because that kind of eases me down, and then don't put anything else on, or it's just in my pocket and I don't put anything else on afterwards, and so then the rest of it's in silence.
But it I love that.
Gives me that gap in between where when I'm first leaving the house and we've just done bath time or bedtime and everything's been crazy, chaos. I can't deal with silence at that point. But I found then if I was putting a podcast on, then it would just stay on for the whole walk. And that's like for me, it's like eases me in. It's so, do you know what? It's so interesting talking to so many people from so many different practices, and that the root of however people are working, often the root cause is trying to help people reduce stress, because without the reducing of stress, or the whatever it is that's causing them to be either burnt out or stressed or in fight or flight all the time, it almost doesn't matter what else they do, because
you don't worry about changing the diet. If you're stressed out, you're not going to absorb the nutrients anyway, kind of thing. So you gotta go a little bit further. And the problem is, we didn't get this stressed out and burnt out overnight. And people just want to feel better tomorrow. So, but it takes some work. It takes some looking at your life and going, what is working and what isn't. I do this exercise sometimes with clients. It's like a core values exercise, where I get them to kind of assess, what are your top 3, top 5 core values that you have right now, and are you actually living with those top of mind? You know, and if you're not in congruence with what you actually want, you know, my top one, well, integrity is a big one, simplicity and nature. So if I'm not living that each week, my nervous system is going to feel stressed. I'm going to experience stress. And so that and taking stock of that on a very regular basis is key, because it's going to change. Your core values can change year to year, or you go through something and suddenly that one thing you thought was your core value is no longer your core value because this one's higher precedence or whatever. And I love just kind of assessing, does your work align with this? Does your hobbies and your home life, does it align with the things that you hold most dear? And if the answer is no, okay, how do we shift that? It's not necessarily big changes, because big changes can rock your nervous system too, but little shifts over time will lead you down a more aligned path for you. And I love doing that. I love that assessment.
Yeah, that's really good. I've got like a goal setting workshop that I do with people that's similar, and that's the first thing that I do. And actually what I do is try and get people to think of like 8 values and then pick their top 3, because when those changes happen, then it's often a bit easier to be like, okay, well, that one's still there, but something's ticked up into the...
Yes, that's right. Exactly. Yeah.
The top 3 is the rotating out of your like top 8 to 10.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's
and try and make the goals, related to the ones in the top 3, because you're much more likely to achieve them. Because again, it gives you, as we were talking about at the beginning, that alignment to your spirituality or your why, if it's aligned with your values.
Exactly.
And your core.
Yeah. And I think that's what it's all about. It's shifting, modifying, evolving to the point that you are unapologetic about your goals and your why and your values, and living according to those. That's called thriving. That's where you thrive. That's where you attract in the people that are supposed to be in your life, and the opportunities and the jobs and the career and the money, and because alignment is everything. And when you're out of alignment, just like I said before, your body's going to let you know, your stress levels are going to let you know, and maybe, I can hear a lot of people say, well, it takes a lot of privilege to make those choices, but they can be as simple as, are you out of alignment with the food you're eating? Okay, can we buy a few more vegetables? Or, it doesn't mean you have to quit everything and move to Bora Bora. It simply means that, you can make really tiny shifts and changes that maybe don't even cost money, like listening to silence, that is going to change everything for you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
That's good. We're in alignment, Ellie.
This has been so really interesting, and I love that what you do is so unique and like blended on all the different experiences that you have and kind of bringing them together. If people want to find out more, or what's the best way for them to...
Yeah, good question. So I am on Instagram. If you want to work with me, but maybe budget is an issue, this 1111 Club I did mention is $11.11 a month. It's extremely reasonable. And you get, weekly teachings and inspired messages, intuitive downloads into your inbox every week. And then I do virtual care and in-person care. And like I said, I'm in Canada, but I can work with anybody around the world. And just get in touch. You can send me a DM on socials and we can talk.
Yeah, awesome. I'll put links to stuff in the show notes, and I definitely recommend people follow you on Instagram at the very least, because you do put some really interesting stuff up there.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And we met on Threads, so follow us there too.
Yeah, that's a great little site that I didn't know about until about a month ago. And it's made some really interesting connections on there with people.
It's fun. I feel like you can be very real there and not have to, So follow us on Threads. It's a good place to be. Thank you so much for having me on here. This was so good. I love these conversations.